Alright guys, you've seen the worst, let's talk about the best. Despite being easily one of the worst years in gaming history, 2020 still had quite a few decent games that came out. And honestly, no matter how bad it gets in the industry, that's probably always going to be the case, as long as you're willing to look beyond the AAA scene. I myself am playing a lot more indie games these days, and trying to find a replacement for the middleware games of the past. But even with the vast amount of time I've wasted playing video games, I still struggled to find a decent list of good games. So to help me out, I brought a friend. You might remember me mentioning him from the Crash to Insanity video for the 5 of you who watched that.
What's up guys, it's Carl Oats, you know, the Crash to Insanity connoisseur and Rainbow Six Siege troll hunter? Yeah, that one. I'm here to bring a bit of humanity out of this synthetic man. Now I want to let you guys know now that our lists are very personal and our choices are reasonable. Yeah, so heads up, disclaimer, I do not share any of the same opinions with this guy.
Oh, he's just being modest. He shares all the same political opinions as me. He hates Jim Sterling. Go harass him on his Twitter, progressives. I believe in you.
I don't have as much time to play games, so there's no Ubisoft games on my list. So think of it as recommendations. Oh, and I'm also an animator, so if you want to check out my stuff or entertain yourself for 5 minutes, feel free to click the links in the description below.
Yeah, me and Carlos have vastly different styles and opinions, and this is his first video in this style, so go easy on him, guys. So we'll take turns going through our list. Carlos will start first, and then I'll go. Before we get into this, do the things the algorithm likes. You all know what that means. Support me on Patreon if you think I deserve it. And without further ado, let's try and find something good that came out of 2020.
So, my number 5 for this list is Death Stranding. Yeah, I know, this game came out in 2019, but I heavily invested time into it in the beginning of 2020, and it's as relevant as ever. Plus, the PC port was released back in July, and it gave the game better performance, improved visual fidelity with DLSS 2.0, and it also came with Half-Life Alyx and Cyberpunk 2077 cosmetics. Alright, so first things first, this game is not a fucking walking simulator, it's a hiking simulator. Big difference. This game is literally about watching where you step. As a Kojima stan, I love the story. And it's a cinematic masterpiece, you know. And yeah, you gotta learn some technical mumbo jumbo like chiral network and BTs and Athmophobia. But as a Kojima game, it's a surprisingly relaxing experience. This game is what people have said before. You're a delivery boy.
Pizza time.
So when playing this, I recommend being in a certain mood or state of mind. Get a little bit lost in the sauce or relax to the max to fully immerse yourself in this dystopian apocalyptic future. The main gimmick for this game is the strand system. Pretty much think of Dark Souls' soapstone message system, but on crack, and maybe a little bit of heroin. You'll be leaving structures, building roads, dropping items for other players to traverse the world, vice versa. If that doesn't sell you, let me leave you with this. In the beginning of the game, you'll be in a barren wasteland, but towards the end, you'll feel like,
look at this, we created this. This didn't exist before we were here. Look around at the square, I promise you right now, we did this.
Number 5 on the best list goes to Noida. This is a review nobody watched because, well, it does kind of just look like a generic 2D indie game, but I assure you it's actually pretty damn good. Noida is essentially Spelunky, but with a better art style, I would say, and a cool wand mechanic. If you like roguelikes and you're a masochist, this game is perfect for you. And I think the large variety of different wands and the fact that you can slot magic spells any way you want, and there's all these modifiers and a lot of cool randomization and secret areas, and it's also a fairly short game, makes for a pretty solid combination. And it's just kind of fun to play. I think that's one of the benefits. The major downsides I'd say with the game though is that it is a little too unforgiving. I'd say it is extremely easy to just instantly die, which, yeah, I guess Spelunky was like that too, so you can see the inspiration. But it just sucks to build up your wizard for about 40 minutes to just blow up instantly or get swarmed by a shit ton of enemies who come out of nowhere. But all in all, I'd say it's a pretty solid game. If you see it on sale on Steam, I think it's worth it.
Another 2019 game that I mainly played in 2020 is Doublemakecry 5. Re-released for Xbox Series X and PS5 under Special Edition. It's basically the deluxe edition of the game with 2 extra game modes, improved lighting, ray tracing, and Virgil as a playable character. Did that sell you? No? Alright, well let me motivate your bitch ass. So, name of the game is Styling All These Motherfuckers! You'll be slicing and dicing and ripping and dipping and slashing and bashing and whacking and hacking and lather and slather and thrashing and crashing, all with a plethora of weapons, decimating your enemies with an endless onslaught of eternal suffering from the abyss. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So the point is to keep your style gauge up and maxed out with combos to SSS or Smoking Sexy Style! There's 4 playable characters, all unique movesets. Crazy! There's skippable shitty microtransactions that are there for no reason. Dismal! Nay, let me take the time to tell you about these graphics. Regardless of what platform that you play on, they're badass! From the apocalyptic atmospheric environments, highly realistic character models, the savage soundtrack and sound design, this is a well-produced game. But what about the story? Fuck a story. I've previously beaten 3 and 4, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. Shit happens, I just roll with it, and it's like that for 5. So just play it.
There's another way I can break this cycle of endless fighting between us. I can go back to where it started. I can undo my greatest failure.
He means you, Crash.
Number 4 goes to Crash 4, which was a pretty highly anticipated game for me. And while I won't say it met all of my expectations, I think that given the dark times of gaming that we've entered, especially in the AAA industry, it's better than I could have reasonably hoped for. It's definitely a really fun game. It understands the spirit of difficulty and skill and just pure platforming that Crash was always about, as really solid linear level design with enough secrets. But honestly, some of the secrets are too secret, which sounds like a weird complaint, but I just think with how much this game focuses on the completionist aspect, they went a little overboard with 100%ing a lot of aspects of this game. It especially caters a lot to speedrunners, and I'm no speedrunner, man. I've never been. Although I did get all of the gold relics in Crash 2, I never tried for 1 or 3, and I'm not going to try for this. And I'm certainly not going to try and get all those perfect runs. Fuck that, dude. But for people who like that stuff, I'm glad it's in there, because it's just more content. And I know some people said this game's a little light on content, but honestly, it has about as much as the other Crash games. So, I was pretty satisfied. And I think I'll probably complete more stuff in the near future when I play it again.
El número 3 en mi lista es el Hombre Araña Miles Morales. As an Afro-Latino from Queens, I had to criticize this harshly. I want to first address a controversy that surrounded the game near release. The drama surrounding Insomniac's mind-boggling decision to replace the coveted Air Jordan 1 Chicagos with these bitch-ass Adidas shell toes. I don't know whose decision it was, but I want them
fired. Why?
This heinous decision severely dampens the experience. But other than that, it's fantastic. Don't think of this as a sequel, overpriced DLC, or 1.5. Think of this as a 1.7, 856 by 358 over 2 days. Almost plays the exact same with a few quality of life changes. I can't quite put my finger on it, but everything gameplay wise feels tighter, more responsive, more snappy and expressive, and couple that with the silky smooth animation, makes for a amazing experience. Or spectacular, superior, ultimate, whatever. I play this on PS4 Pro, and despite a few frame rate hiccups, it runs fine. If given the chance, play it on PS5. But don't spend more than like $30, $40 for this game, because it is short. Well, the last thing I'll say on this game is a personal critique that I have on the game's writing. While most of the performances are good, there is a few lines that are a bit hit or miss for me.
I don't know anybody here, and I'm always having to ask for directions.
You need to find a good restaurant, a barber shop, somewhere you can shoot hoops.
Shoot hoop? Yo, deadass? Where's my fucking mother? No one from New York talks like that.
All this death. Because you
and your uncle would not surrender. I offered you peace, and you chose war. Now, the people of your mainland will suffer. You will never leave this island.
Ah, Ghosts of Tsushima. I think I was a little hard on this game. If only because I want to show Sony some tough love. Because the truth is, I used to be a Sony fanboy. Up until about 2011 or 2012. Because growing up, I always had PlayStation consoles. I had a PS1 instead of an N64. I had a PS2 before I had a GameCube. I've always been a Sony fan. You know, I've always loved their exclusives. And Ghost of Tsushima is a great game. It's a very solid game. High production value, great combat, solid story. But there's certain elements of this game that are in no way innovative and have just gotten stale this generation. Because there's been so many sandbox games. I'm just sick of them, dude. Can you blame me? I mean, sure, you can make the argument, don't play so many sandbox games. But if they release like 30 of them over the past 7 years, you're gonna get sick of them. Especially if you used to like them, like I did. And so, while I still think Sucker Punch did a great job with a lot of elements of this game, and I think the wind mechanic is really cool, and actually finally cleans up these busy HUDs and mini-maps that we've had to deal with for years, it doesn't really fundamentally change how you play the game that much. I mean, you're still just following the wind. It's a cool visual element, but it loses its luster fairly quickly. And the Batman / Shadow of Mordor style combat is pretty good, but we've seen it before. We've seen it multiple times before. And this doesn't really improve on those elements very much. Unlike Spider-Man, which I think Spider-Man legitimately had the most fun version of this combat system I played. So while I think it was a solid game, I don't agree with it being the Player's Choice Game of the Year for the Video Game Awards, for any of you who may have seen that. But it's a solid third place.
Number 2 on my list is a legendary arcade classic that got a sequel 26 years later.
Streets of Rage 4.
If there's one thing you need to know about me is that I'm a huge arcade fan. I grew up with them playing in bodegas and spending a lot of my allowance playing at Chinatown Fair. And besides Yakuza, I'm not that big of a fan of beat 'em ups. So it was to my surprise how much I enjoyed Streets of Rage 4. Fucking look at this game. They dropped the pixels and opted for this traditional 2D animated style. The Lizard Q team made this with love, and it freaking shows. For those of you that don't know, they're a French studio, and if you know anything about the French in animation,
if you know, you know.
From the respectfully recreated moves from previous entries, to the line work on every character and enemy, to the strong key poses, detailed and luscious environments, earworm of a soundtrack. Now this is how you bring back a dormant franchise. And yo, come on, man, they animated the fucking turn! Nobody animates the fucking turn! And I haven't even touched on the combat yet. Surprise, it's a beat 'em up. There is a bit of depth to it though. It runs off confidence, and there's a bit of a risk and reward to it. Yeah, general stuff, you're gonna have to know the enemy attack patterns. This game isn't trying to take your quarters, but it's still a challenge. So get good, pussy.
The only thing they fear is him.
Oh, here we go, Doom Eternal. So, please don't be angry at me, because I really do think it's the second best game released this year, and I think that's a good compliment. I still really enjoyed my time with the game, but I really think it has a lot of flaws that held it back. And I still believe, firmly, that Doom 2016 is the better game. Because here's the thing, before you comment, just hear me out. I think they improved the core shooting. Like the guns, the roles they play in combat, have all been improved since 2016. Now basically every gun has a use, which is great. I think that works perfectly for the type of combat they're going for. However, almost every other change makes the game more annoying to play. Like for example, they severely limit your ammo stores versus 2016. And I found every secret. This is not a matter of, oh, you were supposed to find more upgrades. No, I grabbed everything. My ultimate problem with this game is that it attracts a very specific, masochistic section of the gaming audience. And it's not something I'm foreign to. I mean, I play the Souls games, you know? But the difference is that Doom Eternal is that on Adderall. It's spastically fast, and you have to be extremely accurate, and you have to constantly remember all these other mechanics. Always remember to flame belch for armor, always remember to use your frag grenades, and then when those are out, switch to your ice grenades. Remember to glory kill to get health back. Remember to use the chainsaw when you're low on ammo, which is all the time. Remember to quickly switch between powerful weapons so that you ignore the normal rate of fire cooldown. This game wants you to play it in a very specific way, and that's my problem. There's no player choice. What you're supposed to do is, in these big circular battle arenas, you run away from the demons while shooting them with your various weapons, and every heavy demon has a specific weakness, so you're constantly switching weapons to whatever's effective against that demon. If for any reason the core gameplay loop stops, like you get stuck in a corner because you constantly have to be strafing backward while shooting, and hopefully you've memorized these small arenas so that you don't fucking get stuck in like a tight hallway or in a corner. Because if demons ever catch up to you, they bitch slap the shit out of you and kill you instantly. I have a shit ton of clips of my Nightmare playthrough where I accidentally bump into something and then I die instantly. Like, fucking, on the last level, I lost 4 extra lives because of a tiny hallway. A little tiny hallway that shouldn't exist on one of the rooftops. Believe it or not, I actually delayed this review by a couple days just so that I could finish Eternal on Nightmare. So that I could, you know, talk about it without the fear of people saying I'm just bad at the game. I mean, most people played it on normal, okay? I beat this on Nightmare, and on Nightmare, every problem with this game is exemplified to the max. It's sad because some of these weapons are really fun, man. The super shotgun especially got a major upgrade. Like, the meat hook on it, it's just so fun to just swing around all these demons and get a pot shot in and fucking leap over them. The meat hook sets demons on fire, which means once you shoot them, you actually get armor from them. So finally, an alternative to the flame belch. The super shotgun has to be one of the most fun shotguns I've ever used in a video game. So that's the only amount of fun I got to have playing my way in the game, because everything else is just playing the game that specific way as good as possible. And yes, I know, I've seen some of these speedrunner videos where they found these other ways to fight the Marauder. The Marauder is the ultimate example of like anti-player choice. I despise him. God, for anyone who's played this game, you know the pain of the Marauder. The fact that the best way to fight him is to stand completely still and let you run to him. And then when he flashes green, you shoot him. I mean, he's essentially a Dark Souls enemy stuck in a FPS. It doesn't make any sense, and it just doesn't feel satisfying at all. Even though I eventually got pretty good at killing him, it took me so many attempts to like play against the way that the game teaches you to play just to fight this one specific enemy. This is what happens when you take one fucking gameplay style and you crank it to the max and ignore everything else that makes a good game. Because all of the development time was put into just the combat arenas, the demons, the weapon balance, because everything outside of that feels like an afterthought. The level design is a joke. Platforming battle arena with tiny little secret areas that are basically just camouflaged into the environment. So yeah, I'm sure if you're like the average gamer and you just played this on normal and you had a good time, and you don't really remember Doom 2016 because most people have shit memory, let's be honest, then you might think this is the better game. But seriously, I'm telling you, just go back and play 2016 again. It's a better gameplay loop. Alright, enough. I could rant about this game for like 20 minutes. Let's move on. I still like the game, despite what I'm complaining about. It's still the second best game I played this year, but I hope I explained to you why it's not the best.
My number 1 is Risk of Rain 2, and boy, what a fucking forecast. This isn't just rain, it's a hail, storm, tsunami, and a fucking hurricane. And boy, does this suck you in. I bought this game off a recommendation of friends and I went into it blind. I never played the first game, and you don't have to. This is a really story. It's a fucking roguelike. But wait. Give it a chance, it's only like 25 bucks. I'm not much into them either. Alright, so check it out. You're gonna drop into a planet, and you're gonna find the teleporter and not die. You're gonna be shooting enemies to get the coins. You're gonna use the coins to open crates, and from the crates, you're gonna get these items, and the items you're gonna stack, and you're gonna figure out and pray that this run blesses you with some decent items to trek along each stage to the final boss. Oh, and don't forget about the scaling difficulty bar that continuously increases by the second. This shit goes from easy to normal to hard to very hard to insane to impossible to I see you to I'm coming for you, and then it just fucking laughs at you. It hits you with a I know the game feels like it's shitting on you, but that's the point. It's all a balancing act. I'll break it down. You'll have 600 enemies shitting on you. Focus on the ones that are shitting on you the most. Shit on them so you don't get shat on. See what I'm saying? And you're going to be going through this madness with 10 different classes, each of them focusing on different attributes like range or melee or attack or defense. I could go on, especially about the items themselves. But this footage alone should be enough for you to take the risk.
Alright, the only honorable mention goes to Mortal Shell. I thought this was pretty good for a Souls-like. I've played some bad Souls-likes, Lords of the Fallen mostly. That terrible game. And their second Souls-like game, The Surge, is not much better. But these guys who made Mortal Shell, not only are they admittedly Souls fans, but this is their first game, and honestly, it looks incredible. Like, I don't really care about graphics that much, to be honest, but I've got to give some credit where it's due. This game looks fantastic for an indie game. And the only reason it doesn't make it to this list is just because not only does it not really innovate on Souls combat, it's still pretty typical for a Souls game. The only new thing is the harden mechanic, which lets you absorb one attack in the middle of like a combo or something, which is cool. But yeah, the rest is just pretty typical, and the game is pretty short. Even though it's half price, 30 bucks, it's still a little short for that. It's like 8 hours long. So, yeah, it's still pretty damn good work, though, for their first game, and I hope the sequel improves upon all the elements in this one.
Father.
Wow! It's incredible!
The sea, the heavens and the earth. All of this belongs to my brothers. We are their kin by birth. But we are foreigners in their country.
No mournful speeches. Now get out of my way.
You impertinent brat. Fine. Impulsiveness runs in the family.
Shut up.
And number 1 goes to Hades. You know, for someone who's kind of talked shit about indie games a few times, you might be surprised to see this here, and I know I am. Yeah, Hades is absolutely fantastic. I mean, some of you are probably skeptical, especially since whenever a game journalist talks about an indie game being good, I know I'm skeptical. But so many people have given praise to this game that have played it, and admittedly, I like roguelites a lot more than roguelikes. Especially Binding of Isaac is my favorite one, and this is now my second favorite. Hades just, I mean, its production value alone blows away 90+% of indie games. Like, you could easily fool me by telling me that this was like one of Activision's smaller development teams or Ubisoft's or EA's or something that made this, because it really feels like a professional production that deserves to like have physical copies in stores. The combat is great. There's all these different weapons that change how you play the game, and you're constantly unlocking more weapons as you get further. The game is only about an hour long, which is, I'd say, is perfect for all these rogue type games. There's a crazy amount of randomization, which of course you'd probably expect by now. There's all these cool progression rewards on floors. There's weapon upgrades, god boons, which completely change the way you play the game. Every Greek god has a different type of play style, essentially, that they fit with, and certain gods are more suited to different weapons than others.
Palms of Power, which level up your boons. Centaur Hearts, which increase max health. There's keepsakes that you get for giving each NPC nectar, which can significantly alter a run and make it easier.
There's leveling up. You can level up all sorts of different stats, but they're just minor enough that you improve at the game about the same rate that your character improves. So not only does it encourage you to play more runs just because you think you can get further each time, just based on getting used to fighting these bosses and these new enemies on each floor, but also you're getting slightly stronger over time as well. And so it just creates this perfect progression system. And on top of this perfect progression system is progression of story as well, because despite being a roguelite, it has a good story. That's probably the part of it that blew me away the most. It actually tells an excellent story, as you are the son of Hades, and you need to find your mother, Persephone, who left the underworld, right? And so you gotta fight your way through all the floors and make it to her. But once, and this is a slight spoiler, so feel free to skip, but essentially once you finally win the game, you haven't won the game, because you find out that you can only stay on the surface for a short period of time. So you learn more about the story every time you win. After you beat the game the first time, you unlock this whole new set of challenges to make your run more difficult, but also you unlock new weapon upgrades and specialty items, because all the bosses drop their one-time reward item for each weapon again, as long as you add more challenges. So it gives you a reason to keep playing the game even after you think you've seen everything. The amount of recorded dialogue in this game is absolutely insane. Like, there are so many dialogue lines, all the voice actors are good, all the characters are interesting,
and honestly, it would take too long to explain exactly what's so great about it, but you have to realize, like, all of this dialogue, this crazy amount of dialogue they recorded for this game, during and after every run, basically half the NPCs will have a new dialogue line, and a lot of times it's connected directly to what happened to you in your run. Possibly how you died, or god boon related, or all these different things. The Greek gods have a crazy amount of lines, honestly. I can't imagine the amount of money they spent on voice acting for this game, and it was well worth it. Every character is either well developed or just plain funny. I mean, not hilarious funny, but highly amusing. I feel like I was constantly smiling while playing this game whenever a character was talking.
Oh, wow, thanks. This is real nice of you. I sure am glad you died out there just now.
I'm glad I died as well, Hypnos. I'm glad I died as well.
It's crazy to me. I mean, it's just done so well, and it just needs, like, a Binding of Isaac style expansion that adds more floors and, like, maybe some kind of alternate story ending, a couple new characters with a bunch of new lines, and new weapons to use. It just needs more.
And for those of you who are still skeptical because you're thinking, oh, well, it's another roguelite, so I'm sure it's completely RNG based. No, this game is absolutely more skill based than RNG based. When I finally beat it recently, at least the main story, there's still an epilogue to play, I had a 7 win streak going. 7 full runs in a row. So yeah, just get good and you'll do fine.
So right now, it's absolutely worth the price. definitely the best game I played in 2020, even though I actually played it in 2021. But still, I highly would recommend Hades. Excellent game.
Congrats, you made it. Yeah, we know we have a lot missed. Games like Cyberrunner and Hades definitely would have made my list if I had the time to play it. Maybe we'll throw it on next year's list. Let's hope 2021 doesn't fumble this shit just as hard.
Yeah, believe it or not, there probably were a couple games I would have liked to play. Yeah, Ghost Runner was definitely one of them, as Carlos mentioned. But for the most part, I think we covered everything significant. It's not exactly like 2020 was a strong year. And I don't give a shit about Animal Crossing. I can't believe that even got nominated for Player's Choice. But yeah, other than that, let me know what you think. This is Carlos's first video in this style, and he's an amateur animator, so go check him out if you're into that sort of thing. But yeah, thanks for watching. Next video is going to be Far Cry 1, then probably Witcher 1. Hopefully Resident Evil 5 after that, though I'm starting to get burned out with all these videos. I don't usually upload this frequently, as you probably know. And yeah, I'm gonna check out a lot more indie games. That's the goal. I have Skull the Hero Slayer, which I've heard good things about. Another roguelike, of course. And I've been gifted Song of Horror from a fan, so I'll probably check that out. And there's some other games that people have requested many, many times, and I'll see what I can do. My game request list is insanely long at this point. You should see the Google Docs. I'll post it on screen here. But yeah, I'm going to try and get to everything. Try and have a mix of old games and new games, and probably have more videos in the 10 to 15 minute style. And save for the 20+ minute videos for some of the greatest games of all time. Because I don't think the Darksiders review really needed to be 28 minutes or however long it ended up. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time.